Thank you everyone for being here today. We are going to start with some introductions of our panelists and then begin our conversation and discussion on healthcare innovation.
I am Humdi, and the Merck Digital Sciences Studio, or MDS Studio, is a collaborative effort across 6 different parties, actually. On the operation side, it's a collaboration between Merck's research labs, along with Microsoft and the New Jersey Innovation Institute, as well as across 3 different VCs: the Merck's Global Health Innovation Fund, or GHI, McKesson Ventures, and North Pond Ventures. And we are an accelerator program that's brand new. And in fact, we are about halfway through our first cohort of 12 companies selected out of 52 applicants. And we're in the process of opening up our applications for our second cohort on May 1st. So please check out any updates there on LinkedIn and ask around as need be. We focus at the intersection of digital innovation in biopharma. So how does improved data and digital improve drug discovery, preclinical, clinical, commercialization, pharmaceutical distribution, and improvements in healthcare settings, e-clinical, real-world data. And I think I'm going to end it at that.
Good to be with you all. As Juan said, I'm a partner at Wavemaker 360 Health. We are a seed stage venture fund, 100% focused on healthcare. So, excuse me, that's all we do. By healthcare, we mean healthcare technology non-bio. So we'll touch anything that doesn't have biology involved. So that's in the areas of software, tech-enabled service businesses, as well as medical device businesses. I've been investing my entire career, actually, over a decade now. Prior to Wavemaker 360, I was leading the ventures team at Startup Health, which is another early stage digital health venture fund and accelerator. And prior to that, I was an investor in the public markets. We write $500,000 to $1 million first checks into seed stage businesses specifically, and then have the ability to follow on into those companies' Series A's at about $2 to $3 million of investment then. But our first check is very much seed stage, and I look forward to discussing with you all kind of what we understand and expect to see in a business by that stage.
It's good to be here with the fellow panelists and everybody else in the room. Looking forward to the conversation. I'm a partner at Camford Capital. Camford is a generalist fund, based in Palo Alto in California. And I joined the team a couple of years ago with the goal of expanding our biotech health arm of the fund. And part of it would be, kind of expanding our activities in the East Coast, particularly. I live in New York City, but commute to Boston quite frequently. And we also have some ongoing initiatives for getting venture creation kind of arm of the fund off the ground, like in the near term. My background before coming to New York, I was in Boston for 10 years, half of it grad school, a scientist, engineer by background, and the other half I was in flagship pioneering, building companies as a founder operator.
I am currently an angel investor, also a real estate investor. So I wear multiple hats, but as it pertains to healthcare, I received my PhD from MIT, where I focused on healthcare and AI, working with Harvard Medical School and Mass Gen Hospital in using AI to optimize healthcare operations. I moved to the West Coast briefly to work to lead the accelerator program at Pear Ventures, which is a seed stage firm, generalist, and bio IP. I left Pear to start my own investment fund. Right now I'm based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And as I mentioned, I focus on making smaller checks, angel investing with ambitious founders in healthcare, health IT, as well as real estate.
There are so many proposals out there, many startups trying to improve the lives of patients. Only in 2022, there were over 2,300 new healthcare startups in the US alone. It's difficult to tell what's the next big thing. for you, what do you see as being the next big technology disruptor in the healthcare space?
One of the biggest changes that is crazy out there is artificial intelligence, and largely it's because everyone has consensus that it's going to cause lots of changes. No one has a collective idea as to which way it's going to change. You have numbers of people who are looking at AI kind of changing many different verticals, and people don't know if it's going to be a kind of cloud agnostic investment that's going to win it out best, or it's going to be services, and if they are, how they really plug in. And second is there's always big questions as to data security. A lot of AI algorithms today are being trained by offloading the data that's semi-anonymized to other parties to tag. And a lot of the time, data in healthcare, data in drug discovery can't really be shared like that. So how to go through that discovery process is a big barrier. But that's probably one of the biggest drivers of the last few years and still currently now.
The takeaway I would like to give the audience is, if you're not using AI in your business or in your product, when you're speaking to investors, I think you have to have a tremendous reason why not, right? So be prepared for that as a question. We're starting to see it as a kind of table stakes component of many products. So if it's not for yours, that's fine, but you have to have a fantastic answer for why not, and for why you'll be able to compete in the market without integrating some elements of it.
In my case, I was fortunate to be part of building two companies actually that leverage AI for development of therapeutics. Celarity, we started like back in 2017, and Generated Biomedicine, which became a much bigger effort 2018. So I've been following the space for a while, and I got to confess that I have a bias towards therapeutics kind of applications of AI. We actually faced back then, when we started 2017, like now, 6 years ago, and even right now, a lot of skepticism were on how AI could impact, kind of development of therapeutics, and some really for some good reasons. But again, what we saw that there's early signs, or that AI technologies, as a whole, could be definitely impactful, generative AI particularly. And I would say advice for entrepreneurs, like if you do want to talk about it to investors, particularly in therapeutics who have been exposed to it for a while, you got to be deep in your thinking, in terms of showing your understanding of the space, what has been done before, what worked, what didn't work. And a non-AI area that I personally continue to be excited about is RNA therapeutics. With the COVID vaccine, now everybody knows about mRNA, but there are a lot more species of RNA, and there is a lot of nuances in terms of the type of biologies that RNA therapeutics could modulate. So those two areas are the ones that I think is worth mentioning in my end.
For example, one thing that my former group at MGH looked at was actually using not big data, but small data. In other words, what is the minimum data set that you need to train a AI algorithm to do what it's supposed to do? Because if you think about human intelligence, you show a little kid a car, and you don't need to show the little kid 10 cars for them to recognize, okay, that's a car. Yeah, you show them a Mercedes, and the next time they point at a Honda, they realize, oh, that's also a car. So how, to the extent to which we can leverage harness the power of AI with the minimum data set, and with coming in from the right angle, I think people are getting better and better at it. So in addition to just the technological advance, I'm also seeing a humanistic, deeper understanding and the deeper usage of the right tool, which I'm very excited about.
Sometimes we see that multiple parties are developing similar technologies, competing against each other. So when it comes to that, what is your screening criteria, or the characteristics that you look for in a company or a team that you are looking into investing in?
Yeah, I think more generally, what we're looking for, and again, we're at the seed stage, which is typically kind of right before commercialization or right at the point of commercialization. Maybe the product is a MVP, kind of moving towards a more stable product. But really, at that stage, we're actually mostly focused on the team, focused on the team's background and experience, and why those two things make it that they are the right person at the right time to solve the problem that they're looking to solve. And on top of that, they have to be able to tell that story in an inspiring and kind of a gripping way, right? So one of my favorite quotes as relates to entrepreneurship is, good stories happen to those who can tell them. If you can't describe in an eloquent and concise and knowledgeable way what you're doing, you won't be able to convince investors to partner with you. You won't be able to convince employees to come and join you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So really at the early stage, we're looking for a team with the right background and experience as relates to the problem they're solving, and an ability to kind of communicate why they are the best team for the problem. And then on top of that, and this maybe comes to the AI point, really we're just looking for very deep knowledge of the market that you're building in. And that feeds into why AI may or may not be relevant for that market and for that product. But really what kind of gives us comfort to partner with somebody at such an early stage is confidence that they have thought deeply about their problem set, their customer, and the kind of the problem they're solving. Nothing's kind of more comforting than when a founder brings up, let's say, a legacy incumbent or even a startup competitor ahead of us asking and it kind of explaining why they're better positioned relative to them, because it demonstrates right off the top that they've been thinking about who else is in the market and kind of why they're differentiated. So that's really what we're looking for at the early stage, is kind of the right team at the right time, and a team with the knowledge of the market, of the customer, and of the problem they're solving for them.
We also invest at the earliest stages, though part of our program tries to network our startups with scientists and BD leads internally at Merck, such that it is that point proof of, hey, you have a solution. Does this actually work? Let's actually test it a few times and see how it goes. And, you know, back to the AI comments, back to the changes, is just like, you know, doing a healthcare or life science pilot used to take years. You would have to negotiate for quite a while, make sure things are fine, then get it integrated, and then it'll take a while to get enough data to really know if things are working, things are better or not. Nowadays, with things with more and more digital integration in the processes from discovery or in the clinic or working with care providers or medical device design, you can get readouts inside of 2 months as to if your thing is working or not and how fast you iterate. So back to the element of, at the first check, the first time someone's giving you money, they're giving you money. They care about the problem. They care about the market a lot, but really they're caring about their trust in you. And part of that is network. Part of that is your ability to be coached. Part of that is your ability to quickly iterate on improving your solution as the market changes, knowing that sometimes the thing you made, while it was great for a small product market fit, definitely needs to change drastically or needs to be abandoned for a much bigger opportunity that you're just at the periphery of. There's not really a perfect answer to how that goes. It's really kind of an iterative process. But I guess to recap is, you know, investors at the earliest stages, they are like they're like a headhunter. They got to figure out, like, if you're the right fit for building the company you say you want to build.
I think for us, we also focus on seed and Series A. So it's slightly kind of different criteria for, you know, each stage. For Series A, mostly kind of, you know, inbound through our co-investor network, people who we know in the essentially industry. For the seed stage, if I want to like maybe say a word that might be useful to entrepreneurs in the room, like a differentiation, I think that's the core of it, because, you know, we do live in a kind of noisy world in general, but definitely the earliest stage, seed particularly, there's so many ideas out there. So the idea has to stand out somehow, right? So in terms of the novelty, the team, the opportunity space. So telling that a story to, to Max's point, in an effective way, such that you even grab the attention of the investors is really important here. So how you get to that differentiation, it's really, and many people ask me all the time, it's hard to define it. But the good news is there's so much diversity nowadays in the earliest stage kind of investment landscape. Different investors have different criteria. So you definitely also have to have a high throughput, basically, in terms of your outreach strategy, and kind of then the number of no's, of course, you're going to hear is going to be way more than number of yeses or potential interest. So and that's part of the entrepreneurial journey, right? So, and that's a good kind of self-selection criteria if you have the drive and kind of like the conviction to pursue that opportunity space.
I think most panelists cover everything I wanted to say, and I like the analogy, Hamdi's analogy of being a headhunter. I think I tend to think of the approach of investing in early stage startups like kind of like dating. You can make the promises about the technology and the business. I think the ultimate question that I like to get an answer for is, do I trust that the entrepreneur is going to be able to build a $10 billion business? And so if you were to dissect that question, it has two parts. One is the founder, the other is the market. And when it comes to the founder, the trust comes in as whether the person is ambitious, whether the person is resilient. How does one stand in front of numerous setbacks? How quickly can you execute, and do you have the network to iterate, and things like that? And when it comes to market, typically early stage venture funds are looking for $5 to $10 billion bottom up market opportunity, and we can talk about exactly what that meant. The good founders, good markets. I think that's what I would say. The specific product is, I would say, at the early C stage is less emphasized on, because VCs know you're going to pivot, and they need to they care less about the current state of the product as to how as much as where you can take it to the next level.
Thanks so much, guys, for joining us on this panel. The question I had, because all of you kind of alluded to the team being important, grabbing attention, differentiation, product market fit, all of that is great. I'm curious, because if someone's a very good storyteller, right? How do you guys really filter the noisy stuff? Because what to you is your due diligence process as to, is something a robust technology, or is this just like noise that's attractive?
Yeah, totally. And obviously diligence is what we get paid to do, right? But I think the point is that if you can't get yourself into the diligence process in the first place, then it's a non-starter. So, I mean, our diligence process is comprehensive and covers market, covers product, covers science if that's relevant. And ideally, you're looking to get rid of the pure storytellers and trying to find ones that have stories worth telling. So you're absolutely right that it's a dangerous thing to chase and to potentially fall for. But again, we have a robust internal diligence process that hopefully sorts through those stories to find the ones where there's actual traction, there's a stable product, and there are customers who are kind of happy and paying for it. That's a big part of our diligence process, is actually customer reference calls. So we'll speak to people who these companies have sold to get a sense of whether or not, one, the contracts are real, but more importantly, what their experience of the product is, and is it solving the problem that they set out to pay for, and kind of what can be improved. So that's certainly a big part of our process.
I would just quickly add that it comes from, just reading, seeing pitches after pitches, and then a lot of investors, they start seeing a pattern. So for example, I've seen 5 pitches this year on using AI to optimize operations in emergency care. And the problem always comes as how, yes, it's one thing to predict when sepsis is going to happen. It's another thing as to how you can prevent it, right? Are you going to send an alarm to the attending physicians while they're already, the overwhelming information is just not conducive to physicians performing their work. So yes, sepsis is going to happen to this patient, but what are you going to do about it, and how are you going to stop it, right? And none of the 5 startups that I talked to had a good answer on that. So if the 6th startup comes in, where that falls on under my priority list. So, and things like that. The other thing is, I think assessing, in addition to, assessing the founder and assessing the market, also just getting a sense for how mature the technology is. Yes, you can have a good story as to, how if you can commercialize it to the entire US, this can be a, good product, massive opportunity. How difficult is that, right? Like how many layers of regulatory compliance do you have to unravel in order to get there, right? And also with respect to the product, is this still in the lab, or have you had done industrial scale pilots and things like that? And different VCs have different risk tolerance, but those are the kinds of things that get factored in when it comes to doing diligence and sifting the filtering the ones with just the stories and the ones with stories plus something maybe more concrete.
And that's a great question, Cynthia. I mean, I think it particularly depends on the space that and also stage. I think for pre-seed, seed companies, I would say the storytelling, the opportunity space that entrepreneur is pursuing, that's probably more important than the actual, let's say, data that they can and verify. And for the space that I operate at, mostly therapeutics, I would say one fact is that most of the investors I know these days, they have PhDs, MDs, or very sophisticated in terms of understanding like of the science. So it's pretty easy for us, to ask the right questions, trying to understand the data, etc. early on. And one thing I want to emphasize, because you cannot be, or you don't want to be too smart about it. Also in the earliest stage by definition, there's a lot of unknowns, right? In terms of the science, at least for us, one of the criteria for me, seeing the entrepreneur, the leaders of the company, having a good understanding of what is known and what is unknown, rather than trying, let's say to sell or overhype the data that doesn't exist. That's definitely an important criteria, because the end goal is to develop a therapeutics that is going to go to human body, one of the most sophisticated systems that we all know, and it has to work, right? So it has to be based on science and kind of solid data. So by definition, it wouldn't be complete. There's going to be a lot of unknown, but as long as the team has a good understanding of where they are, what needs to be done, that's definitely an important kind of part of our diligence process. And my advice to the people here is that to be very upfront, very straight with the investors, and that could be definitely helpful in their cause.
For us as an accelerator versus an investor that kind of keeps on going, there's a plus and minus there, right? So the minus is we're not recruiting startups every single moment of the day. We're really looking at a very tight window cohort-wise. The benefit is we are getting a collective snapshot in one go of people who are applying. So for our first cohort, we had 152 applicants for 12 slots that we have for funding. And so that process was kind of a waterfall method of here's a structured application of getting an understanding of where you are, both on, you as a company, you as a founder and your narrative, your strategic fit for all the partners that we're working with for MDS Studio. And then, the financial situation you're in versus the investment size we make. So we make an investment of only 150K at a 10% discount on a safe with a most favored nation clause. There's no valuation cap amongst other things, but it also means that I don't want to invest in a company that values itself above $15 million, or we're going to be getting less than 1% equity. I don't want to look at companies that have raised, more than $5 million in total, or we're going to be so small on the cap table of our peers that it looks a little too weird at times. After that first round of diligence, we bring in our investment partners, they take in a pitch. And again, it's that assessment process. We structured it. We encouraged our investment partners to be like, hey, here's the kind of dimensions that we should evaluate at a high level. What's working with this presentation, what isn't, from what they told you ahead of time, what they told you in the meeting, how they responded to your questions. And then our third stage of diligence is a mix of legal and technical. So the legal element being like, hey, is your house in order? Are you incorporated appropriately? Is it clear what the bylaws are? Is it clear what different sort of structures are for like control? And then on the more technical element, it's like, cool, you say you have a thing, you say you can do this thing in the next few months. Is it really there, or is it vaporware? Some amount of that you can really figure out at the start and like figure out very quickly. Other parts look fine and they don't work out. And then other parts look phenomenal, seem phenomenal, and don't fit whatsoever. Wow, I ended up on worst case scenarios. It's as if lots of startups fail. But being more serious there, again, to loop it back to the beginning, it's really hard when you're an open fund that's investing over an 18-month period where you're trying to figure out the best opportunity at a certain time. So advice to entrepreneurs on the call is, if you're reaching out to investors that have like an open fund and they announce that they're going and they're starting investments, get to them within the first 6 months. Get in early such that they have enough bandwidth to kind of compare you to others, because they're going to start to run out their money so they can start to raise their next fund. For accelerators, try to get in early. Ask questions early for the people making those investment decisions at each of those gates to give you feedback, as well as allow them to get some information on you to figure out, back to that earlier element when you're doing a first check into a startup, who the hell are you? Are you coachable? Are you likely to grow and work well with us? I hope that made sense for people.
When it comes to proof of concept, how is this important for you? What are some examples of proof of concept that investors look for? And how is proof of concept unique in the healthcare/biotech space?
Proof of concept varies a bit as to what sort of technology you're doing. So I'm going to look at it on two sides. You're making a primarily physical thing, might be a chemical, might be hardware, might be a hand-to-hand person service. And then one side of it is more digital. For a digital proof of concept, it's, do you have the structure of a minimum viable product? And can you get like that first customer to actually use it and decide if they want to keep reusing it, and then tell other people about it? So there's a whole metric in the kind of like internet investing space of customer acquisition costs, net promoter scores, lifetime value of customers, that at least early on, you can get some estimations of, are you getting that early traction? Maybe you need to improve your prototype. Maybe you need to improve your pricing, but someone actually cares. And that can be iterated fairly quickly. For the hardware things, that's more of a committed partnership element of, you have a problem and it has to tie in. And some of that is developing a trust with a scientist or a service business leader who's like, hey, I will open up my calendar with you to speak with you every so often. I want to learn more. I want to get updates as to what you're making, how it's improving, and then try to test you out and network you yourself. So to some extent, your proof of concept for that more hardware thing is, can you convince someone to be kind of your free spokesperson, business development ally? That's a harder art, and a lot more success that we've seen from it tends to be from founders who've come from, I'm speaking to as if everyone here is in a research lab, but have come from labs that have had that kind of collision and experience. You kind of learn that art by working with the other people who've done that art before.
I can quickly add, if helpful, maybe to complement, because I like the composition of the panel. Like we cover different areas. Like for therapeutics, I would say particularly I would say rather than, it's actually pretty easy to tell what the proof of concept is. But to me, the tougher question is what the concept should be, or like to whether a concept is worth doing. So that's the part that I would say, because I see a lot of interesting idea, even the data shows the concept, like of what people are trying to do, but whether that concept is going to have the impact, in the therapeutic application kind of landscape is not always clear. So maybe just highlighting that for entrepreneurs, as paying as much attention to that as what the proof of concept should be, would be definitely helpful in their pitch.
And proof of concept for me just means, you do as much as you can to help me understand what the final product will look like once you push it out to the market. So if it's, in therapeutics, it might be data that you obtain from doing experiments on a mice model, on a rat model. In software, it could mean a small scale paid or unpaid pilot with a major healthcare provider. In software, it could be a low code, the mock-up on Bubble or even on Figma, just something that tells me where your head is at. That could be that would be a proof of concept. And I will say that a full contract beats one full contract beats 10 paid pilots, and one paid pilot beats 10 unpaid pilots. I think investors get really interested when you start having revenue coming in. There was a time when Silicon Valley investors would give $100 million valuation to a startup that's pre-revenue, pre-product. I think that phase has passed, and now people want to see more with the little things that you have at your hand.
Yeah, and for us, as a reminder, our lens is kind of seed stage, primarily healthcare technology, digital health. We're willing to partner on an idea with the right team, but we need some indication that what you've built is actually going to solve a problem for someone. So we always refer to it as we're looking for willingness that somebody somewhere is willing to exchange some amount of dollars for what you're doing. We're not asking you to have a full, multi-year, 500,000 total contract value contract right out of the gate, but evidence that you've kind of convinced somebody to give you their hard-earned dollars in exchange for what you're offering, and what that implies, which is it's solving a problem for them, is kind of our minimum threshold of a proof of concept.
It would seem that most investment groups and incubators and accelerators have their own targets when it comes to company stage. But how is that important for you? And how will this differ based on the technology space? For example, therapeutics versus digital solutions.
Yeah, so I think what's helpful for entrepreneurs to know is that every fund of every different flavor has its specific criteria and usually stage at which it invests in, right? So when you're trying to discover investors, one should put in let's say hard work, but it's not that hard. Look on their website and try and get a sense, look at Crunchbase, try and get a sense of what stage they invest at. Because if you're a seed stage entrepreneur and you're trying to get in touch with a fund that only invests in Series B and beyond, it's a waste of both of your times. So I think doing the kind of elemental groundwork to figure out who is investing in companies of your stage is kind of the most valuable thing you can do. We get emails all day long from founders saying, hey, I have a Series A, or hey, I have a pre-seed company. We don't do either Series A or pre-seed, right? So And we're very explicit. If you go on our website, we have a section, and I appreciate not all venture funds have this, but FAQ, founder frequently asked questions, where we try and be very specific about, hey, this is where we invest in and at what stage. So we try and hopefully create a funnel of companies in that stage. But absolutely figuring out, being self-aware about where you are from a milestone and traction perspective, and then which investor cohort that matches up with and where you should spend your time reaching out, I think is a valuable use of people's time.
I think there's two rules of thumb I'll give to like founders a bit, to kind of like understand investors who have, you know, out loud information of like how big their fund is, you know. Typically your fund size is your thesis. A bigger fund needs to do bigger checks. Admittedly, that varies with also their statement of, or their implied history of how many companies they keep in a portfolio. So some early stage investors will write smaller checks to have 50 or 60 companies fall into their umbrella, while investors that are Series B and onwards might focus on only 15 to 20 companies in their umbrella. But beyond that, approximately rule of thumb is how big the fund is roughly proportional to how big their check sizes are. So that comes to, if you're looking for an investment of a certain size, you should be targeting funds appropriately. That's thing one, that's more mathematical. The more human element, again, you're trying to get your first investment. So it's personal on both sides of the table. All right. You need to make sure that you're getting an investment from someone who adds value to you, as well as something that for them adds value to the investor. For the investor, they have to convince limited partners every few years to invest more and more into their funds. And they need to be excited about you so they can make other people excited about you. Similarly, your first investor is someone who's going to help you network, who's going to help you grow. They're going to be, to use this analogy onwards, they're your coach. They're going to help you grow. So you want to make sure that you actually get along with them and that they want to go through the pain with you as well as those successes. And that is partially through just being a human. Okay, we're still all monkeys and trees. So like figuring out from your peers, figuring out from others as you network with them to figure out, is this someone that I want to grow with? Is this someone that wants to help me grow as well? And that takes some amount of time. You'll read about in the news, people getting rushed together deals inside of 2 or 3 months. Those are outliers versus the longer relationships that usually come together to get a deal, which actually I'm curious numbers wise for everyone else, but at least what I did prior to the Merck Digital Sciences Studio, I helped scientists find co-founders for about 4 or 5 years. That window of time was like 9 to 18 months to engender that trust, to actually get to know that person the first time, to finally writing a first check. Not talking about the pitch, not talking about the solicitation of what that size is. And it's a very, very long game.
I actually want to double down on what Hamdi said. And I'm realizing how important what he just said to us is, after we've gone through our entire diligence process, after we've kind of done all the fact checking and built conviction around the opportunity, our final kind of mental check is, hey, hold on a minute. Do we want to work with this person, this team for the next 10 years? Because that's what you're committing to. That's how long it takes to build a business of meaningful size and kind of outcome. And so at the end of the day, it's, do I want to be working with this person every week for the next decade? And that obviously goes both ways, and very much something that I encourage everybody to think about when partnering.
I think just like Max and Hamdi said, you as an entrepreneur, you want to find someone who can be a value add to your business, not just someone with lots of money, because money is a commodity in the venture industry. And you would want someone who can actually help you grow your business, and someone that you're excited to work with, right? You look at their investment let's say you are a medical device company, and you look at their investment portfolio, and all they have invested in is cryptocurrency and decentralized protocols. Well, you know that they're not going to help you with they're not going to help you when it comes to getting FDA approval, or privacy requirement when it comes to human subject experimentation, things like that. So you would want you be careful of who you bring onto your cap table and understand whether the investor that you are going through diligence with, make sure that you also do your own diligence on the investor. It should be a two-way street.
Well, we are out of time, but thank you everyone for joining today, and a special thanks to the panelists for your valuable insights and for supporting the education of all the entrepreneurs that join us today.